In our next session, the speaker will dive into the deepest realm of the subject to bring out and share some pearls of wisdom. It's my pleasure to welcome up Mr. Alok Nanda, founder of Alok Nanda and Company, who will delve into the topic, Premiumizing Brands, a Multidisciplinary Approach.
Hi, I'll introduce myself meanwhile. That's my name up there, Alok Nanda. I run a company that focuses on premium brands and luxury brands, and specifically in another mode in the healthcare and corporate branding space. We've been in this business for 20 years. Next year actually completes 20 years of my company. Single office, but we operate in London, Antwerp, and we've just started some work in Dubai here. We're a multidisciplinary firm, and that's the thought that I would like to share with you. The whole notion of building a premium brand is gaining value these days as incomes and economies grow. I'm from India, and the Indian economy and wealth share is increasing, and therefore there's a dramatic need to add value to brands, how they can grow with the consumer. In many ways, the consumer is moving faster than brands are responding. So what exactly is premiumization? To reduce it to a price point and to say I would command a higher price is a very wrong way to look at it. What I call premiumization is essentially creating a universe that makes the brand far more desirable. And one of the big learnings that I'll share with you is as you move up the value chain from premium brands to luxury brands, the higher you go up, the more seamless that universe has to be created. You're trying to create an illusion, a world and a universe, and if the cracks show, the value proposition crashes down. So I'll move to, and what I'm going to share with you today are a couple of case studies through which I hope there'll be some learning. We work with Unilever in India, and Taj Mahal Tea is one of their largest brands in India. And they called us in at a point in time where they realized that their customer was changing and they needed to respond in some way. And the other bit they realized was that with a brand like Taj Mahal Tea, it has a potential to grow way beyond what its current limitations were. Could I move to the slide, please? So this is the brand we began to engage with. It's a very iconic packaging and shape. Everyone knows this. Sorry, could you just hold there? Yeah. So the way we looked at how to premiumize a brand is to really understand what its core values are and then figure out how to disseminate and build a language, both a verbal, a visual, and an experiential design language. So when we looked at Taj, we said, what is the core value of this brand and how do I make this brand shine? And we said it's not about the monument, the Taj Mahal, but it's about the expertise and craftsmanship that the monument is built upon, which is also a fundamental core value of this brand. So we went back to Agra, which is where the monument is. We looked at the inlay work that details this product. The monument. Could you move to the next slide? And through that, we created a whole visual language system. This is just the packaging. But having said that, a single pack is not really going to change the direction or certainly where Unilever would like to take this brand to. So could I see the next slide, please? Yeah. So what we did was we worked with them to design a tea house. Now this is a packaged goods company that has never ventured into F&B. We had to upgrade and change the logo. Could you hold that, please? Yeah. Now, one of the reasons to do something like this is you need to, if you're going down the path of premiumizing a brand, you need to have and start to create premium variants. Could I see the next slide, please? So now why would you pay 3 times the price of the pack before if the only place you encountered that pack was in a grocery store? So we needed to build an entire brand experience of a tea house. In some way, this is the reverse of Starbucks, right? Starbucks started with the experience, and now you can buy Starbucks coffee at a grocery store and pay a certain premium for it. Here we had to go the reverse way. This commands about 8 to 9 times the price. This is, I think, about 1,200 rupees a pack. And the first pack we started with was 150 bucks. So that shows you how you can move to gift tins, how you can move to, this is an e-commerce brand, and it's only sold through e-commerce for gifting. This is, again, the iconography and the language of the tea house. We could just move forward from there. So you'll start to see a brand that was what I would call a mid-income brand. It still, as a brand, has to straddle mid-income, but is moving to a far more premium zone. And it's all coming out of understanding what its core values are and then creating a livery out of that. The next one, please. This is the tea. You can make your own selected blends at the tea house, and then it's packaged and sold to you. Next, please. Yeah, that's the physical tea house. Remove the next one, please. So typically, when packaged goods companies start to do experience design, they end up creating retail that looks like you're walking into a 3D piece of packaging. And that's not a good idea if you want to build a really premium brand. You have to go back to the core values of the brand. And what we did was, we said this is a home of a connoisseur. It's a relaxed home where you can sit and listen to Indian classical music. This brand is very Indian in its appeal, and it's designed in that manner. The selection of the tea house is an old bungalow with small little private rooms where you can sit and have your tea. Next, please. So you can see it's relaxed corners. It's a home of a person who's comfortable in his or her own skin. Yeah. And we then move to actually designing, this is all designed by us, crockery and having it made. And this is merchandise. So you start to see how, if you want to build a premium brand, you need to move from iconography to language to experience design, where the customer begins to experience something different, to merchandise design. It's a whole story. This is just the beginnings of our journey, and we hope to see where the brand goes ahead. Yeah, could you move to the next slide? Yeah, I think these are just more details of the same. The next, please. I think it's important to see two parts to this. One of the first and singular learnings is the more you want to premiumize a brand, the more you need to bring in multiple disciplines. And they need to work in a sense of orchestration. And I think you heard an echo of that at the previous group discussion that happened. How do you create a commonness, particularly when you have multiple partners who bring this? Even with our multidisciplinary skills, as our company, we cannot do everything ourselves. We had to partner with an architect to design that tea house. But somebody has to maintain the control, the reins of the place, so the language is the same, whether it's visual, verbal, or experiential. Yeah. This is a brand in Dubai, so some of you would be familiar with what the brand is doing. But frankly, when they called us in, I was not familiar with the brand. And what we typically end up doing in such experiences is to begin to understand who the people are behind this business. Shobha Realty has been in the Middle East for a while. That was there, and it still remains a sort of their corporate identity. But when we deep dived into who the people are behind this, what an amazing story we discovered. The founder, Mr. Menon, built this business not like a real estate developer. He started as a furniture maker. He moved then to getting contracts to do interior design. Then he started taking entire contracts for interiors for palaces. And then somehow he moved to the exterior structure. And I said, what a remarkable story, because most developers start the other way. They buy a piece of land and then they start to experiment with the product and then they build their skills. But this gentleman came quite the reverse. And I said, there's a DNA to this brand that needs to be told. And we said, it's all about the details, because that's how this man is. And that's how the company is infected with his culture. And therefore, we said, perhaps there's a new language for this brand needs to be created, which is about craftsmanship and detail. And we started to hand cut the font and create a logo for this brand. And now you can see how it's moved to a completely different space. It's the same company, but the brand is now manifesting what was always there as a truism for them. This is not something we've imposed upon them. We just took what was the best of them to bring it alive for the customer. Next, please. This is some of their show, these are not show residences, but sort of the spaces where they sell. We took part in Cityscape a year ago, and they won the best brand at Cityscape. Again, you'll see how the livery manifests itself. So one of the important learnings, again, for us is how do you bring the values of a person who drives the company to make it come alive through materials, expressions. So one of the things back home in India, we have, I think, the largest library in India of specialty papers within our own organization. It's about the touch and feel and texture of paper. It's not just about design or physical design. It's about bringing a whole set of sensibilities and different skill sets to bear on the same, or to create one single brand. Yeah. Could you move to the next, please? That's their London sales office. And again, you can see how the brand is transforming itself. They have a product brand as well called Shobha Heartland, where again, we revisited how they should express themselves at a fairly premium level. Next, please. And again, in the next couple of slides, you'll see how the livery extends itself. Those are brochures that we've designed for them. Next, please. This is the advertising we did for them, which is, it's talking about experience the difference between living in the shadows of a skyscraper and the shade of a tree. So again, the language of this brand, it's all in black and white. It's all got its own language that holds it all together. Next, please. I don't know if we can play the film without sound, so we could just play it for a bit and see if it's working. Oh, sound's on. I think we could just pause this. It's just to give you a sense of the language of the brand and what it's about. We can move to the next slide. Just want to touch upon something that was true to the Shobha experience, which is something I've learned over the last 20 years. We're all from the world of marketing and advertising, and we have this belief that the consumer is everything, and my opinion is no. I've learned the hard way, and in many ways, the consumer is only 50% of the story. The other 50% is who you are. I have seen, and I've worked with large industrial groups, and for the same consumer and the same market, two marketeers behave extremely differently. Why is that? So it's really important when you're trying to build a brand or premiumize a brand, it's equally important to understand the DNA of the organization and the people behind it as much as the DNA of the customer. And the Shobha brand couldn't have been built if we hadn't understood the true DNA of that organization. I'll just move to this one. Sarda Farms, this gentleman used to run still runs a farm somewhere down in a place called Nasik that's outside of Mumbai. And he came to me and said, I'm selling this milk, etc. And, I really want to grow my business, and please give me a really cool name, and can you just jazz me up a bit, and can we grow the business? And I looked at his name and I said, absolutely not. Why would we want to change your name? He says, but it's not a cool name, it's just my surname. And I said, isn't that your biggest strength? So he argued a lot, we argued a lot, but we won. And that's what we did. We just said what you need to do is just represent yourself. You're just presenting yourself very badly. What's important is your name says, my name is on the name of every packet or bottle of milk that I sell. Rather than building a big brand in imagery, how about creating a small artisanal brand? And this is a brand where Mr. Sarda knows the name of every cow in his field. He knows exactly what's happening. And now there's a story where I can command a premium. So the next thing we did was we got rid of those plastic bottles and we designed this glass bottle. It's a little retro, but it's also very authentic to the story we're trying to build. We ended up commanding 130% premium over milk in Mumbai. This currently commands 130% milk premium over any other milk in the market. Sorry, could you just go back, please? So happy was the client with the idea of building artisanalness that we've now launched butter and a whole set of other products. But I'm not here to boast about the success of this brand as much as I want to talk to you about how do you create a seamless story. If you can't do this with advertising. Advertising is merely just a vehicle. You can't do this with digital. Digital is a tool, it's a vehicle of reach. All of these add additional values. You need to bring them all together, but it has to begin from a holding structure. And that holding structure must enable you to be able to move up the value chain, move up the pricing ladder. It's about understanding materials, about textures, it's about understanding packaging design, it's about identity. It's as much as advertising. And it's not that I'm putting down advertising, I do advertising myself. It's how do you leverage a milk bottle? When you open the door, I can put a message on the neck tag of your bottle. And you see the language of this milk is we don't have a subscribers list, just a who's who. The next slide. How about changing the way milk is dealt with? So if you make an inquiry, a gentleman from Sarda Farms will come to your house with a welcome pack and a gift of artisanal chocolates made with Sarda milk. He will sit you down and talk to you about the choice of milk you like between a range of 6 different varieties and what works best for your family. That's a complete shift in how milk is handled. Even a 5-star hotel guy will not land up at your house to sell you the hotel. So how do you build an experience journey? Sarda's biggest success is not actually the packaging or the designing that we've done, but the shaping of the customer journey that we work with them on. When you get the milk in the morning, it's refrigerated and cold. That's the pack you see outside your door. You just don't see a bottle lying there. Next, please. We do inserts in high-income building societies, and that's the story. We know our cows by name, shouldn't we? They're our family, and that's why he's got his name on the pack. Or little stories. We all know that if happy cows give you better quality milk, and this is the story of how we play Mozart to our cows so that they are pampered and looked after. And these are little stories that allow you then to go digital on social media, and you start to create a whole language for this brand. Outdoor. Again, outdoor is very localized in high-income places. Next, please. So you've got a visual language, you've got a verbal language, you've got packaging, you've got the website, you've got social media, you've got, and most of all, in my opinion, you've got the experience design of how this guy comes to your house. You've never had somebody come to your house to explain milk to you. So that's on this front. Somebody's keeping tab of time. I'm going to keep talking. You can cut me short. Yeah. Lodha is India's largest real estate developer. And when they engaged with me, they were not small, but a mid-sized, mid-income developer in the distant suburbs of Mumbai. And the short-form learning of this is how do you change the perception of a client about what business he is in himself? If you think you're in the business of putting up buildings, you will call yourself a builder, and you will not be able to move up the pricing ladder. You will never be able to move up from who you are to premium, and in this case, to outright luxury. We don't sell buildings. We need to understand what are we actually selling. Next, please. This is now 15 years old, the logo that we created for them, but most builders in Bombay, their logo would have shown you a building because that's what they feel, that's the business they're in. What we did was to try and create an identity system that helps one building that you put up sell the other. So you start to see repetitiveness, and your perception of the brand is much larger in the early days, certainly, when it actually was. Because each time you see one project, it's an echo of the previous one. Equally important as far as identity is concerned, we focus very strongly on naming. And there's a huge art and science to naming, to create names that create aspiration and desire. This is, of course, working for the Indian market. I'm not familiar with this market, what works in naming. But we worked with them on how do you create a naming structure and a naming language. The third part is we work a lot with architects and interior designers to understand that whatever designing we do must look better on the building and not look just nice on paper. And that's how we work with them with multiple materials. Next, please. We also understand that real estate is a complex business. One part of it is selling a product. The other part is actually selling a service, because you part with your money pretty early on in life in India, and you wait for the project to come up. There's a relationship period of a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And there's also an experience design element of when you come to a show residence, etc. And what sort of space do you want this brand to occupy? So you start to create a vocabulary for the brand. All of these are actually physically existing things that we started to create for this client that then manifest themselves in the experience. No one before us had even held an umbrella over someone's head when they took you on a site visit. Which is rather surprising considering the price of real estate is phenomenally high in India. These are individual projects. We work with silversmiths. These are all designed by us. We have a product design area where we as well develop these things. We start to create, so I'm sorry, I'm going to just a referential point. One of the other things we did was to look at events and relationship building. There is an opportunity, because real estate is also physical, to how do you get people to come to the site? How do you get them to come to different moments? Yeah. So the way to do that is to have events and have a speaker series. So we developed a whole program of inviting world legends, a program where we enable the client to bring in global brands to, so say for a Maserati or a Ferrari to launch their new car on our site. And through this experience, you start to bring in both your brand values and customer sets. Next, please. So that's merchandise. I'll move a little faster. I'm going to be running out of time. We now graduate the brand to luxury, and you'll start to see how it moves from a builder to a premium brand to a luxury brand. Could you move to the next slide? The design elements now actually physically start to manifest themselves in the physical product and not just as collateral or design material. Next, please. You start to see a language for luxury. I'm just move fast on this, whether it's brochures. Next. These are all brochures and material design. Next. How do you send an invite across to somebody who is a luxury customer? Next. Yeah, I think these are all. Next, please. So this is where we ended up. Number 1 Grosvenor Square is one of London's most expensive properties done by my client Lodha. And this is the identity we created for them. We chanced upon a 17th century etching of Grosvenor Square that you see down there. And through that, we created an iconography for Grosvenor Square. And that is a supremely luxury product. The other part of being multidisciplinary is to also bring, as I said, experience design. And with Lodha, we created a concierge brand called Saint Amand. And this is a brand that looks after you if you stay in any of their residences. Yeah, next, please. We can move fast on this. This is interesting. The other part is we work, and to build a brand, you need partners. And I had the pleasure of working with Mr. Armani personally on this project. This was his first ever project in India, and he was very, very skeptical that India would deliver not just the product, but the communication around it. So he insisted on being involved in everything. We shot a film. I had to present the storyboards to him. It's amazing. He's a very elderly man now. We think of him as a young man. But he was involved in the shoot, the selection of clothes, the handbags, everything we ran through him. At the end of it, he was satisfied, and then he allowed us to manage the Armani brand from India. Next, please. So we could just move very fast on this. A little glimpse of the film we shot with him. I think just give you a quick glimpse. These are all on YouTube. You could be able to see them. You could stop that. Since I'm running out of time, I'm going to just jump straight to. So that was all shot. We could just move forward again. These are just different designers we work with. Philippe Starck, we shot him in India when he'd come down for the launch of the property. We work on the show residences. Video walls, the physical experience design. This is an experience design of a property called The Park, where we realized that everything of value is not inside the property, but outside. So it was a gallery we designed where you looked out onto the gardens to see stuff. Yeah, next please. I think we're on time? Okay. So we shot Mr. Trump before he became president. His last words were, "You're fired." So, it was a very difficult shoot because he gave us just 10 minutes and we just landed straight from the airport, shot him, and we were out from there. This is all part of the Armani shoot. Yeah. So this is the last one. So one of the things we did this year, so moving from to come back to the learnings from here, is to move from identity systems to architecture to experience design to partnerships. 4 months ago, we launched a magazine for Lodha. It's a 160-page magazine that we've designed, and it's a magazine. It's not a catalog of their products. It reflects their lifestyle. I think Lodha's own stories couldn't be more than 8-9 pages out of that. It's a full-fledged lifestyle magazine, and we want people to subscribe to it because we are selling a lifestyle. As I began, we are not selling a building, and that's what we did. But there's also a concierge app that we've done where you can select a building by proximity to a school or neighborhoods, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so I'm going to end here, but I just want to quickly restate 4 learnings. I could just keep going with case studies. So I'll just restate the 4 things that are at the end of this slide. The first is that the more premium you wish to take your brand, the more seamless you need to make that universe. Actually just move forward on a few more slides, we'll come straight to, yeah, that's right, 4 things. So the more premium you get, the more seamless your universe needs to be, the more important it is to integrate design. And I think this is important to understand. It's not about different silos working together. It's about, so to give you an example, it's not about advertising and design working together. It's how do you infect your advertising with design. So it's about having one person at the helm who is able to integrate and merge these things. So it's a partnerships world. As much as one team or one company can do, we have to bring in other people. And the corollary to that is you have to be in control, you have to be a dictator. We work with luxury brands and we study them. Every single luxury brand in this world was built by a dictator. I've seen how Mr. Armani works, I've seen how all these brands work. There is one man who calls the shots, and you have to be a dictator. That's the single biggest reason luxury brands on the client side have creative directors. And sometimes if they can't have that, we have to be their internal creative director because the voice has to be seamless. If that universe falls apart, everything falls apart. And of course, ultimately, craft is the difference. There's no point seamlessly trying to stitch a universe together that is shabby, does not command the lifestyle perception you want your customer to see so that they're willing to pay you a premium. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Do we have any couple of quick questions from the floor at all? Does anyone want to ask something? Anything? Yeah, okay.
Go ahead, I'll be second.
But very quickly, please.
Loved your presentation actually, Mr. Alok.
Thank you.
So just one quick question. So I think from customers' expectations perspective, what do you think, what is the best way to analyze the brand? Because I think surveys are more traditional nowadays in order to really assess what customer really needs. So from your own experience, apart from surveys, what would be those tactics?
Oh, I see. So two things. So when you work with a giant company like Unilever, there is no shortage of data. They're able to dice and slice the customer in a huge way. I think the value that we would bring, say, for example, beyond what they bring to the table, is to understand broader shifts that are happening in culture. So I'll give you a very oblique parallel to the Taj Mahal packaging and where it went. The conversation actually moved out of tea, it moved out of packaging design, and it moved into what's happening with Indian fashion designers. And that was a nice surrogate for Taj Mahal tea. It's an Indian brand. What are Indian fashion designers doing? And then we studied, and maybe for most people here may not be relevant, designers like Sabyasachi, etc., who have a certain skill of detailing and craftsmanship. That's how we arrived at where we should go. So what you need to do is not just look at the data that your client will have, because your client will, we're not talking startups as the earlier group was. These are large clients. We work with the Taj hotels. We launched most of their properties internationally. They have all the data you want about their business and their clients. What they don't have is an understanding what's generally happening in other markets and other products or categories that could mirror them, where more interesting learnings can come. Because very often, they're sitting on data that their competitors are sitting on. How different or how much of a game change will you make unless you don't come from an outsider's lens? And that is, I guess, why they value marketeers like all of us in this room. Yeah.
Hi. Right, so typically when large clients, you just said large clients, and it's funny that, because typically when large clients come to us, they already have a brand strategy that they've been working with, and when they want to change their identity and their overall brand, sometimes, we get a pushback saying, no, here's my brand strategy. So how important and how much do you think, as professionals, we should push back on then redefining that brand strategy to, establish their tone of voice, the way they communicate, etc.?
Yeah, so it's a little difficult. In fact, your question is absolutely relevant. It's a real world question. You have to ask yourself, why is the client resistant to change? And why are you so eager to change? And neither of the two should be a wrong answer. You should be looking at, is he or she resistant because we all get comfortable in our own skin? Then that's a problem. Then you need to understand and show them, your market is changing faster than you are. Look at who your audiences are. Look at the risk, and you're from the social and digital field. You could perhaps show them conversations that are happening, and that, this is what they're discussing out of this category and this market, and just look at what you're coming across as. The other part is a client, and I think that was again discussed in the group before us, you've got to build trust with the client. Because these are expensive decisions. These are not reversible decisions. I can't reverse what I have done for Taj Mahal tea. I mean, it would be a very expensive job to reverse it. It's not an ad, it's not a tweet, it's not a post. It's for the next 10 years, hopefully, or if the market moves faster than the next 5 years. So there's a trust angle on your side if you're genuine about why that need. But I think there's an education job to be done as well. It's not easy, absolutely.
We've got another couple of questions.
It's a great presentation, thank you. So building a luxury brand or premium brand, it's like climbing Mount Everest, right? And it comes with a lot of pressure, both from the client as well as audience.
Yes.
So when you actually decide a brand strategy for a luxury brand, what's the foresight you see, like 5 years, 10 years down the line? How do you define it?
Yeah, so I'm just restricting this to the brand identity part because you can change its applications very easily. So the bigger part is the core identity. You need to know, A, are you doing the right thing, which of course is a process and you work with your client on it. But you also need to be sure you're not doing anything faddish. It's very easy to say, I'm just using anyone's name, say Lodha, for example, who's a dated brand, let's make them look cool. The problem with cool is it becomes uncool very quickly. So you need to be sure the answers you're supplying, and that's only to the core identity, needs to be robust enough as long as it's in the direction where the consumer is going, but it should be robust enough to survive change. The application of how I use it could change with time. The surround that I use around it, that can be far more dynamic. So that's one part. The other part, if I hear you correctly, you're saying what's the strategy one would keep in mind? I'm sorry? Could you?
Yeah, basically, what's the brand strategy when you actually define or redefine the brand positioning and brand identity of that brand? Because it's a lot of pressure when it comes to for a premium and luxury brand.
Yeah.
Because
So-
a lot of money and pressure involved.
So each of these projects that you saw were 3 to 6 months long. They were not done overnight. I'm not able to draw a commonality between strategies because I think you have to do what's right for each particular brand, its legacy. So the way if I had to do a very simple construct, whatever I'm suggesting to you as a client, is it true to you? That's one part. And the second part is it relevant to your customer? And the sweet spot is where the two meet. Because there may be things that are true to you but are irrelevant to your customer, please don't do it. And if there are things that are relevant to your customer but they're not true to you, please don't do it. I think it's like a Venn diagram where the two meet is where you should, the rest is very specific strategies for specific brands. I hope I've answered something. Yes, please.
Mr. Nanda, Sujit from Magneto Media. First of all, thank you for such a great presentation. I really wanted somebody to touch on that topic. And I wanted to ask this question from a business problem standpoint, especially from Indian demographics, or I think it's prevalent across the globe.
Yeah.
Prior to Magneto, I was working with Google, and we were talking to all the TAM advertisers, the top TAM 5,000 advertisers. Looking at the top tier, the top 100, and the remaining bottom, whenever we go to them, when we were pitching about ads, like digital ads, Facebook, or print, we found there are different agencies they work.
Yeah.
But when we talk about creating a brand identity, the way you work, now the challenge is they do understand there is a need, but what is the pitch they need to understand that there is a cost involved? Because they go to a digital agency, they say, I have a few $1,000s, my budget is less. They go to a video creative, they go to OOH that they have already committed to print. So what should be the pitch that if you are asking about a seamless experience for your consumers, then why do you need to invest in that particular thing? The objective is creating a brand identity.
Yeah.
So I want you to.
So as in how do you convince them to achieve that
Yes,
spend
yes,
and
because
time and focus? Yeah.
That is where they do not want to shell the money. You
Yeah.
know the Indian mentality.
Yeah.
The brands, they are worth hundreds and thousands of crores, but still they do not wish to change.
Yeah. It's a tough one. It's also very individualistic, but by and large, yes, you're right to convince clients to. So here's what I say, and it's also true. When you put money behind branding and a brand language, etc., you're creating an investment. I'm sure internally you have discussions about whether you should expand your factory's production or not, and what is the investment. I would strongly submit you add this branding cost to your factory production cost. Don't put it into your marketing cost. That's because you're physically or mentally in the minds of the customer changing the product as much as putting up a new production line. So your conversations on branding are all about investment. And I hope that, I mean, it doesn't always work. It really depends on. Communication is also an investment. It's just, I've not shown you my advertising side of my work, but I also do a lot of advertising work and films. Digital is largely video. We do a fair amount of that as well. It is also investment, but its investment is a little lower order in the context of if something should go wrong, I can change it, or I can move faster with the times. So somehow in their minds, there's a sense that there's an immediate return to communication, and there's not an immediate return to branding and creating a brand language. But that's equally true with your factory. Isn't that right? That's equally true with the piece of land you buy before you put up your factory on it. These are long-term investments. But if you don't do that, 5 years from now, you don't have a new factory, you're in deep trouble. It doesn't matter how many ads you release that 5 years later, 4 years later. So the conversation has to shift for branding to investment for a mid to longer term period. That's how I would try and convince the client. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Firstly, thank you very much for such a wonderful presentation. I think one could just go on, hearing all the experiences that you've had. I think, as we all know, brand is mostly an experience that we feel more than the color, the logo, the look of how it feels. It's the experience what a customer thinks. When we think of Nike, we don't think of shoes. We think of the experience that Nike gives us. So I think among the various things that you talked about, visual, verbal, website, packaging, if I go back to Taj as an example, there were different variants that you picked out, and everything had to be changed and revamped. So how do you sort of work with perhaps, say, limited budget or set milestones? At this milestone, this is what I'm expecting to see, and then we go for this, or does the revamp happen altogether?
Okay. So it doesn't always happen together. So I'll first address that part. Again, it's so individualistic on the particular client. So let me give you an example of, say, Sarda, the milk brand that you saw. Clearly, the client was really looking at change my label, that plastic bottle, and give me a better name, etc. And the conversation we were able to change to was, you have such an opportunity staying with your name. And what does that name connote? And it starts to open a universe for you. So when we did the exercise, it was really just the identity and the bottle, and we stopped there. He then came back to us and said, guess what, guys? I can command this amazing premium. What should I do next? So some of it is naturally staged in business. You come for one part, and then you see its value and you grow. Lodha is a 15-year journey that I've tried to collapse in 15 minutes. There's so much more one could show. So that's a journey. I think some things have to be done all together. You're building a new brand, or you want to suddenly upgrade, then that universe has to be all together at one time, literally at one time. I think Taj Mahal tea is one example of that. Because you're out in the market, you can't have multiple faces. You need to be all together.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nanda, for that. It's absolutely fantastic. Fascinating. I can't even say it. Thank you so much.